You call a lawyer now?
You can turn on your microphones.
Get him on.
All right.
Alrighty.
I'll call this meeting to order. This is Town Council Work Session on April 2nd, 2024. We have an agenda for tonight, and the first thing on the agenda is the MOU with Lincoln County Sheriff's Department. As many of you know, we've had this in place for quite some time. How long? I mean, the past 15 years or something like that, we've had, no?
No,
10?
about 8, 9 years.
Yeah,
No, well, 10, 11.
Okay,
11,
so
11
in,
years.
in that range, 10 years or whatever, and this is in place of us having our own police force. And we are very thankful that we have them in place to do this. And it recently came up last year, actually, that we need to look at the pricing again because we hadn't incurred any sort of increase in this since the beginning, basically.
Pretty
We were
much.
paying something around 60,000 a year.
And then it went up to 80, and then this, I believe.
Yeah, so a lot of this now is because of the additional sheriff's deputy that we are going to have, that we will be splitting between Star Valley Ranch and Alpine. And this also goes hand in hand with the house that we want to build for a sheriff's deputy that's still on the table. The town of Alpine is contributing the cost of the property over in Alpine Meadows that the house would be built on. So this is all kind of happening all around the same time. But do you guys have any specific questions on this MOU and what we're going to get out of it?
I did. I know that when Monica and I were discussing, because I know we started around, we've gone from 60, 70K. So we were just looking at, obviously, the price difference. I saw a little specification, but I just wanted to dig deeper into
So
what
when
exactly
we
their
met with
commitment would be.
When we met with the sheriff, he said to hire an additional person for their salary and their benefits. There wasn't too much more. It was about 130,000 for
Right.
them to hire an additional person. That didn't include like their vehicle,
Right.
the radio that you've got to get, all that sort of stuff. So pretty much 130 pays for, they're not going to get paid 130, but you know how it works.
Yeah.
With all their costs in line. Monica, if I'm not mistaken, last year, the contract was for 60,
correct.
and we
Yeah.
budgeted 72.
Because because Shane had discussed back and forth numerous times that the cost needed to increase
Yeah.
to match what he was paying his deputies and the expenses they were incurring. And so I think through those conversations, though, it morphed to a point where we recognized that we might need more. And so he decided at that point not to adjust the contract amount. So we essentially, we had budgeted for a 20% increase. However, the contract never increased
Right.
last year. So, and so what he had stated in our meeting is that he will hire one full-time deputy. And then there will be a vehicle. I know the mayor has asked him to have that vehicle, have, what would be the word?
A sticker on it serving
says-
the town of Alpine.
Yeah. So-
Probably on one side it says serving the town of Alpine, on the other it says Star Valley Ranch
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
But he's been in communication with Star Valley Ranch and they're
Okay.
in agreement to kind of.
Because I know that we hadn't heard back from Star Valley Ranch. So they've come forward and said, yes, we do want to share that.
Well, and I haven't spoken to the mayor of Star Valley Ranch
Okay.
directly, but that's the information that we've received.
That he was working with them.
Yeah,
Okay.
so,
Did we have any feedback from our compliance officer, Steve, on this?
I haven't seen Steve, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Okay. No, that's
Yeah.
okay. I had only had conversations with him in the past, and his fear was that obviously if Star Valley took a lot of time, or again, if this extra deputy is called in to go to accompany another deputy on a DUI, let's say in a Kemmer, then we're back down. So I think his only concern was to make sure that we would have a lot of dedicated time.
If we need to talk to the sheriff about it, he's more than happy to come in and he can explain this.
Okay.
And Monica and I have
It might,
met with him.
it
in
might be a
depth.
good idea
I wouldn't
at this
mind.
point to do
Yeah,
that
and
again.
I'd like to invite Steve as well.
From what he's told me in the conversations, that for us to have like 24-hour coverage here,
Right.
we would have to have our own force and have something like 5 to 6 people.
Right,
Yeah,
So that's very clear in here that this is not like a full-time position.
right.
Someone
This
is
is a
not here
starting
24.
point. Yeah,
If they get called out, if, for example, he gave the anecdote that basically you'll have someone here most of the time.
Okay.
They'll be split between those two areas. But if, for example, there was some major thing, everyone goes.
right.
Teton County,
Right. And
Idaho
that's-
comes.
But that's reciprocal, that's the same for us, everybody.
exactly.
Exactly. If we had something here, boom,
Yeah.
everyone's coming. So,
Yeah, I'd like to see, I know that Star Valley Ranch isn't, when I've talked to them, their concerns for DUIs and obviously their nightlife is much different than ours.
Yes.
But I'd like to see if they would want somebody there the majority of the evening shifts, if we can negotiate that, so we had more of a presence in Alpine.
I think a lot of that we need to leave.
Sorry, Mike.
Just one other thing I wanted to make sure. The work sessions are pretty laid back, but I want to make sure that if we have any comments from the people in the audience here, that we do it from there, just so the people at home can hear. I'm sorry, what was I
No,
going to say?
I know, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
What were we talking about?
Star Valley Ranch
Oh.
and their shifts.
Exactly. So what, I don't feel comfortable putting that in this
Okay.
document.
Okay.
And I think it's up to the sheriff and the deputies and the people to figure out how that works.
Okay.
I mean, they know their business way better than we do.
Right.
And they'll figure that stuff out.
Right, they'll
So,
see number of calls, and just, right,
Yeah, yeah.
okay.
Any other questions or comments from up here?
I will tell you that Jim's comment was, who wrote this agreement? And I told him I received it from Shane, so I think he's probably going to clean it up a bit.
Okay.
The language, I think
Sure.
he had some questions, but he'll probably work on it.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you want me to, because this decision doesn't have to be finalized, in my opinion, until
June.
June-ish,
Right.
because of,
Third
we
reading
need to
for the
be able to land it in a budget if that's what's gonna happen.
Yep.
So do you want me to schedule him for the next work session? Like you said, make sure that Steve's here. Is there anybody else that you think
Should we
needs
just
to be
have him
part of
come
that?
to a town council meeting though, because we could ask him questions and then at that point, or it doesn't
Just,
matter.
well, and at any budget session, because that's what it's going to be a part of, it'll be a part of our 23, or 24,
The
25
next
budget.
work session's gonna be a full budget session.
Okay, so let's
Okay.
invite
Thank
him
you,
to
Monica. Yes, I
the
love
the work session in May.
Okay, I'll work that out.
Okay.
that. Thank you. Maria?
Thank you. Is this intended to be a 50-50 split between Alpine and Star Valley in terms of cost and in terms of time spent?
Yes.
So will that actually be tracked? So will we know then over the course of a week or a month or a 6-month period if they're spending 60/40, 30/70? I mean, will we know that?
I doubt it.
Well, actually, you can dig into that because it'll be public information when the person on patrol checks in with dispatch. And so dispatch will have them on patrol Alpine, on patrol Star Valley Ranch. But it will vary, I mean, you'll have to do digging because say they get a call for, they're here, but a major call happens in Star Valley Ranch, so they got to go there. That's how it'll kind of, and it goes vice versa. As far as sharing the load, so to speak. And it's how we've had the contract. This isn't the first sharing it with Star Valley Ranch. This is how it's been since our first contract. When we first went into negotiations with the county after we let go of the police department here, then it was in conjunction with Star Valley Ranch, and every contract has been since.
Okay.
I also think there's gonna be ebbs and flows. We might have a busy month here, and then
Right.
Star Valley Ranch has a busy
Right.
month. To be honest, I think with, like, Councilwoman Castillo said, we have the nightlife. And so, we might get more patrols at night versus they might have more patrols during the day or vice versa. I don't know. But, we'll have to talk to the sheriff about that. and
Because
see.
I was going to say, if somebody knows that it's one guy doing both places,
Right.
and I've got a nefarious act planned in Alpine, I'm going to call break-in in Star Valley Ranch and keep the guy occupied there for a couple hours.
You
So-
are a very
Devious.
interesting, devious.
Yes.
But I mean, I'm the only one that thinks,
That's why I think we leave it up to the sheriff and we don't
Okay.
have, posted
Right,
times when the
time.
sheriff.
okay,
Right now,
Okay.
you and I can almost set our clockwork by when they drop by.
And the other
3,
thing,
4 o'clock, it's very
yeah,
predictable.
the other thing in conjunction that we're gonna do here in Alpine that I think will be helpful to the whole situation is, so Dan has moved, he had an office over in the Civic Center in the back. He's moved out of that. The sheriff's office has always been able to utilize one little space in the back of the Civic Center. But we're moving things around. We're going to do some shifting of the Legion's items and give them a different space for storage and all that. And so that back set of offices and that entry area is going, and also there's a holding area from when we had a police department. That's all going to be turned over to the sheriff's department. And so they're going to have almost like a sub-office
Okay.
here. This is all, when
Right.
you plan something like this, without everything being set in stone, it'll all kind of morph.
yeah,
But
yeah.
Sheriff Johnson's also looking into seeing if he can get breathalyzer
It's an intoximeter.
or to
Okay.
be placed in that
okay.
facility
That
as
will-
well,
that will
that will
save them a lot
save
of-
traveling
Yes,
to
yes.
Kemmer
Yes.
or
Oh,
to
right.
Afton.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's, I think that dynamic shifts maybe
Okay.
where their hub's going to be.
Well, as long as there's just a more visible presence.
That's the goal.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
goal.
And to your point about it being more random as opposed to, okay, set your watch,
Yeah.
kind of a thing.
And
Yeah,
it's always during the day. I mean,
yeah.
I would be interested to see, it seems like when I've talked to the sheriff, the majority of our calls are past 10 PM, except for weekends, that's always hit or miss. But it does say now these logs obviously will be after the fact, but it does have in there, make available with reasonable notice all public records and logs pertaining to the town of Alpine with reports of activity. So
We can
we'll start gathering data on that and seeing where we're most
Which
needed.
we currently get their report on a monthly
Right,
basis.
yeah,
That
and we'll
just
see
tells us.
all of their calls, yeah, and which ones they are,
Yep.
yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I
Yes.
think Dan Scow, Alpine Meadows, P and Z, I think that you have a greater law enforcement area here with the highway patrol. You have people who park, you have highway patrol that parks down over here. They park down right at the north side coming into Alpine. You have a greater legal force here than you actually might consider. You have four times a day, they come through here.
Well, I see HPers all the time.
They're here all the time. So you have, if the impact is about hiring one or two, there's a greater law enforcement presence here than you
Well,
are.
and they are restricted only to doing stuff on the highway.
Correct.
So this contract is for all the things that we can't handle ourselves.
Sure.
So, I see what you're saying. They do have a presence, but they office out of their vehicles. And so that's why when you see them just hanging around, a lot of times they're doing paperwork and whatnot.
Sure.
But,
But eyes and people who see police presence
Yes.
just in a car
for sure,
are more
yeah,
apt to,
it's gotta help. But,
so.
well, let's see if we can get, the sheriff here
I'll
next.
see what I can do
And-
at
and
the work
if-
session
If that,
in May.
if that date doesn't work, then we'll try to
We'll figure something out.
figure another
Yep,
date
I'll
out.
let you know.
Any other comments or questions on that one? Okay, let's move on to the penny tax projects, and thank goodness Kevin's here, because I think we'll have lots of questions for him. These are the three that have kind of come to the top of the pile. So we have the Green Belt estimate, the Riverwalk project planning, and the generator for the Civic Center. Let's just take these one by one, if you don't mind, Kevin. Appreciate it. So the first one, and again, these are for the special purpose tax, which is an additional 1% tax, sales tax. It's not 6 more pennies, it's just 1 more penny of sales tax. And the county estimates that this will generate about $20 million over 4 years in the county. And so what the goal is for each municipality to decide if this is something that they want to participate in. And we have to have a vote by a certain date as a town council that says we will participate. And then in conjunction, we have to bring forward our projects. Some municipalities have streets and roads. Afton, for example, has a park project that they're going to plan and update their park. Off the top of my head, I can't really remember. I think Thane is talking about doing an indoor recreation type area, which has pickleball and soccer. So there's some really good things on the list. These 3 things, this one, the first one, in my opinion, is just kind of helps this corridor when you're coming into town to gussy it up a little bit and look nice. And Kevin, if you don't mind, maybe you could tell us what you guys put in the proposal and how you think it could be accomplished.
Sure. So as you can kind of see the kind of minutia, I guess, the pink lines there. So it would be on both sides of the highway until you'd get right up over here where it ends. And then we would continue all the way down around the corner. And then we would also have the concrete on either side. We would just continue it around. Now, the concrete just doesn't have to stay like it is now. We just kind of match the way it is right off the side of the road with curb and gutter. And then we also put landscaping and lights all the way around there as well. So basically, as you come around the corner, you would have a Town of Alpine sign. You'd have your lights just like you've got down here. And then you'd have some landscaping across and curb and gutter. So it's a way to kind of disseminate like, hey, we're the Town of Alpine and this is where we started. So it'd be a way to kind of take care of that entire area all the way across. We matched what is existing kind of farther down in the core, but it doesn't have to be this exactly. This just gets us to the number for the spec. And once we get to that point, we would actually come up with some design alternatives, and then we would basically show the town, and then you could have some meetings on that.
Yeah.
Whether it stays next to the road or pulls off the side or
I like
those
that
kind of
idea.
things.
Yeah.
One thing that Kevin and I were talking about, the vision was kind of like, I like having the sidewalk, but not necessarily next to the highway for
Right.
safety reasons.
Right.
So maybe we put in curb and gutter, and then there's some space before there's almost, it could be asphalt or whatever, but like a walking path that kind of goes in between the trees and
Yeah.
everything. And it's a bike path as well as a walking path for residents on this side of town. I don't know if there's a walking path only on one side or both sides, but we would need to dip into that. But does anyone have any questions or comments on the general design? What we're trying to achieve in concrete on both sides or curb and gutter or whatever? Comments?
So with I guess first, with the design, say in the winter months, once we figure out McCoy Creek, can the groomer come in still as they always have?
Well, and that's once you get to that point, if this got approved, then we would get in the design process and we'd start asking people what they want, do like a public comment period, and then we could start working all those pieces into it.
That'd be a major
So,
portion
yeah.
of what we'd want to do
Yeah.
for sure.
And that's why we came up with this design is kind of based what you've got existing. But if you wanted to like add a little to this to say, hey, we want to have asphalt on one side for groomer trails, or we want to have just split lanes or things like that, you could, if you wanted to, you could add to this when you take it to Teton County as far as your cost.
Should we, decide now amongst ourselves here with a more clear idea of what it is and look at these numbers again.
Well,
What I don't want
right.
to happen is that we say, okay, it's 800,000 for next year's money or whatever, and then we design something that's half again as much.
Exactly, yeah. And that's the thing is with a spec, you can also put the verbiage in there when they approve it, is that it's basically saying it can use up to this amount, and if anything extra on that will go back into this project for the maintenance of that project. So it could basically go back into fixing and repairing and taking care of that project until you use those spec funds up. But it can't go for like hiring new personnel or those kind of things.
So basically a fund reserve.
In a sense, yes. So that's the nice thing is if you budget in a sense,
Right.
you can still use those funds until it's completely out. You just have to have an accounting number for it and take care of it from there.
Okay.
So,
And then
Yeah.
curb and gutter, where does that go?
pretty much, right now, it just kind of spills off.
Right.
We don't really have a system, right? So,
So is that gonna be even more of a cost where we're gonna have to figure out?
it is a
Where's
cost.
it gonna go, where we're gonna drain it, where's,
We would basically probably just do some retention ponds on either end and then run it that direction. We just trying to do a little bit of design as we're going, which way we would want it to go in the future, and then go to a drainage detention pond for now. And then after that, we could take it somewhere else in the future.
Further down towards the corner, it slopes from north to south quite a bit because of the turn.
Right.
So I would think a lot, I don't know exactly, you'd have to talk to Whiteout, but I think a lot of the water would end up on the south side of the road anyways. So, I don't know.
Well, you could do like a pan up there to where it stays in the pan across there with the curb and gutter side. So it'll stay on the top side, everything that would come off the curb. So you can kind of direct where you want to go and then put some inflows and take it the directions.
I think we have to
So-
rely on the experts to tell us what the design needs to be, and so there's plenty of design money in here as well, right?
Right. And that's the thing is, that's where we came up with this design. It doesn't mean that's what y'all want.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're looking at another pathway, I've seen where you've got concrete, it's for, pedestrians, and then you've got a pathway for bikes, which, the bikes always mix with pedestrians anyway. So it's really hard to keep them separated like that. But,
This also helps us achieve our goal of getting a crosswalk here, because as everyone will remember, YDOT told us they're not interested in putting a crosswalk in until we get the sidewalk out to that location.
Right.
So, I think we definitely need to do some planning on this. I would like to talk to YDOT about potentially putting a tunnel in and what that would entail.
Mhm.
I think that's totally separate from this. But we should keep that in mind if and when this does happen, that we keep that in the back of our mind as an option for, instead of a crosswalk across the highway, it's a tunnel underneath, or a bridge over.
Right.
Whatever they want.
right. And that could be part of that next proposal as far as your pathway system out there. You could work those two together as well. You could even work it in with this as well, if they both passed.
Yeah.
You could start working them together. So, and then you can also have the signage across there, that the radar signs that tell you, hey, you're above the speed, blink, 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 or you could have a crosswalk sign button that you push,
Yeah.
get some lights flashing that doesn't really interfere with the state and their highway, but it actually helps you with some
I
safety.
do love that. I think those are really effective, especially at night.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. I do also want to talk to them about, instead of going from 65 to 45 at the corner, maybe going from 65 to 55 there, and then putting another speed limit sign to 45 that's, let's just say it's right here, it changes to 45 or something. So, because people right now, they don't see the 65 here, and, tourists or whomever are hitting 65 and they see the 35 mile an hour
yeah,
right there, and they're doing 65. So, any crosswalks, things of that nature, that'll help,
yes,
I think, from a standpoint of, it's that traction, what do they call it, friction, traffic friction, so we can slow down.
right.
It won't help someone that's trying to cross the highway and someone's coming in 65, but, we do the best we can.
Yeah, if we could get those speed limit signs adjusted, that would be.
Don't you think
great.
that's
Yeah,
like
it's
easy?
just not good.
Yeah.
Like the way it is right now.
We've requested a meeting, or at least I asked Craig to request a meeting with Whiteout, so we'll see if that can be something that can be done.
Almost like make it 55 around the corner, like slow them down
so.
there.
We met
and
with them
bring
last,
in,
was it
yeah.
last fall or last?
Last spring, we met with them.
Yeah, I mean, he seemed receptive, because I brought that up saying, you have Thane where theirs goes
Yep.
65, 55, you know, and you have the same thing in Afton, actually it goes 65 to 45. Or it's on the south end, it goes,
Yeah.
it goes 55, 65.
Yeah.
Right,
I'm like, it should be consistent
gentle
throughout the
progression.
valley.
right.
And they seem pretty receptive to that, but
I think we just need to have another meeting and discuss it. But does anyone have any more questions or comments for Kevin on this project? Let's go to the next one is the Riverwalk. This was kind of my vision, born from just a way to make Alpine more of a walking community instead of right now, to go to the post office, you jump in the car and go to the post office, you go to the, the grocery store, whatever. We definitely need more pathways around Alpine. And this will be definitely a good start. The idea is there's kind of this purple line on here, and this line indicates where there's kind of an ATV path right now.
Right.
And so this Riverwalk would kind of mirror that or be close to that. And I think it would also come around and link up with Highway 89 south. I do know the county is, and one of the county commissioners in particular is super interested in pathways in Lincoln County. And if she got her way, there would be a pathway on the side of 89 the whole way, which is ironic because they just redid the highway. You would have thought that would have been a priority. But at this point, the walkway or river walk would start towards the mouth of the Grays, go down on the bench, staying above the high water mark, and then figure out a way to go under the bridge, which could be bored, it sounds like, potentially, or it would go around closer to the lake, and then comes out over here by Melvin, and then links up going south on 89, and then goes across the bridge as well. I don't know if there's a dedicated line or not. And then kind of follows this that goes out towards the rugby field. And then I would like to see one that goes out towards Flying Saddle as well. So all the people that are at the RV park or out at the Flying Saddle, can get on their bike and easily make it over to the center part of town.
Yeah.
I think the goal, if we were to redo the master plan, the pathways and all the transportation part of it would be real important. I think this pathway or sidewalks going out towards Bananas would be super important as well. I've heard a lot of comments on that. So this basically pays for the basically to do you want to just run through it real quick what all that would entail?
Yeah, because like one of the very first biggest numbers is that first $150,000. So it's the feasibility, it's the survey, environmental assessment, going through and talking to the BLM, Forest Service, the Game and Fish, figuring out the basic route in the first place, and then trying to see if that's feasible, what they're thinking of, and it's a lot of meetings back and forth.
Right.
That's what that part is. And then once you get to that point, then the next one is the 30% design, where you're like, okay, this is what we've all been talking about. This is what it looks like. Is everybody happy? Then you go through the public comments period. And then if that's good, then you go to the next one that you jump up to 75%. And then you do public comment again at that point. But at the public comment at the 75%, you're pretty much already past where it's going to be, those kind of things. It's more of what it might look like, or maybe a pullout or some smaller items at that point. And then after that, you go into the 100%, basically. You finish off with the environmental, but you go into the 100%, and then you can go to the bids. And at that point, then you've got other things.
Then what, in my short time in public service, I have found out, and I'm sure you have all heard this from me before, but if you go to get a grant or get any sort of money from state level, federal government. They will not do it unless you have a plan in place to do it. So this gives us a project that's basically ready to put shovels in the ground. So when we go to do that application for another flap grant, we can say, we've already done, all the planning, we're ready to go, let's pull the trigger. So,
Now, without this six penny tax, I know you had had a lot of discussions about how to move this project forward. Would we have any other options? Let's just say the six penny tax doesn't pass with the majority. What were our other options for this funding, just for the design aspect?
oh yeah, well, we would actually, for the design, you would get a flap grant as well. So
Okay.
we looked at TAP grants, which is through the state.
Right,
And there was one major factor that you would have to have it plowed 365
three hundred and
days.
65 days,
So
right,
that
okay.
kind of said, and it also had a 20% match.
Okay,
A flap grant is 100% funding. So the other option is we apply for a flap grant in a couple years because we've already got an application for a flap grant for repaving Grays River Road right now. So
I was
that
just
would be the
curious.
backup,
okay,
I think,
Okay.
to get the federal government to pay for it. I mean, it's all on federal land.
yeah.
So, it's a
It's
perfect
just
project
lining
for
up
them.
everything.
Yeah.
In which case, I think getting the community involved, because of course, you only have a small page to give a description, and so I just
Yeah.
wanna make sure it's something comprehensive enough that residents can understand what exactly this money is going towards.
That is a good point. We have to come up with very specifically on the ballot. Every town's project shows up on there and it's a line item. And it says, this is going to pay for this. And it's kind of frustrating because someone in Kemmer might see Alpine Riverwalk, no, I don't want that, and then they'll vote for it. Like, I don't
Right.
know if it's difficult, if
If
hopefully
they understand it's all or
understand.
nothing,
Yes.
right,
So that's part of the education process that we have to go through for this penny tax. Is there any other questions for Kevin on this?
Another
Yep.
funding option too for this is once you get the design done, then you've got the budget. And then that's gonna be about the time period of the next spec. So you could actually put this on the next spec or a section of it, phase 1 and phase 2.
okay.
You could move it. at
You
that
mean in
rate.
4 years?
Yeah. I mean, we'll be done with it sooner than that, but
Yeah.
it would line up for that next one.
Yeah, that's a good point, because at that point, after this whole process, we'll have an idea of how much it's gonna actually cost to do it.
Right.
How
So-
long would this be good for, this?
The code doesn't change a lot, so it's gonna be pretty much
For a
set. You've
while.
got the topo, you've got the drawings.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it would just be the memos of understanding between all the different government.
Environmental impact, that's the biggest one on there.
Is, and off of that, is contingency of 10%, is that pretty standard? Let's say there were a lot more environmental questions, or we had a lot more feedback from the community and we had to go back and forth. Is that
Coulter
enough
made
of a
this pretty
cushion?
conservative,
Okay,
so I think it's a pretty good number.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I just had a question for Kevin. I see a bullet point on there for lighting. Is this going to be lit like all night long? Because wouldn't that be a little bit of a distraction if it's
Not
lit all
for
the
this
time?
one.
I don't think there's light,
Light
oh, it
up
does say
this one.
lookouts,
It says-
lighting,
The only
It says
lighting that we
lighting,
would have is
yeah.
where any crossings.
yeah.
That's the kind
Oh,
of thing
okay,
you
so
would
it's
have. You
not, the
wouldn't have
path
it-
is not lit the whole
No.
way?
No.
Okay.
That
That's a good
will-
question.
I,
yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
I wouldn't want
Because,
that.
yeah, that would
either.
be like,
No,
Might as
Well,
well,
I'm sure
yeah.
that
like a runway.
pop up on the environmental assessment
Right.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah, for
Okay.
the
and we'd wanna
dark
take all
sky.
the boxes with them and have the lookouts and have the education opportunities, and I think it'd be really cool because have some old photographs of what it used to look like before they dammed it up, and,
Yeah.
that whole especially out on the, towards Melvin at this point out here, just kinda have a view of what it used to look like, and
Right.
that education piece, I think would be really cool, so.
Yeah, you could kind of see where the old highway even comes across.
Right.
Yeah, it's really interesting. When
Yeah.
the water's down, to go out there and still see asphalt out there is
Yeah.
pretty crazy. But, so anyways, any other questions for anyone regarding this one? Okay,
Thanks,
so,
Kevin.
yep. And then the last one that we wanted to talk to Kevin about was the generator. So this came up when we had the power go out of, when was it, in the fall? It went out for only about 3 hours, but it became real apparent that we don't have the public safety setup, whereas if the power went out and everyone's so reliant on electricity here, that if it went out for a couple days or a week, we are not set up to house people and keep them warm. So adding a generator to the Civic Center, I think, is real important. And this first bid that we got was pretty much just for the generator, but you said you talked to Kevin, so could you
Yes.
run us through that?
Yeah, so Kevin, he's an electrician,
Yep.
so that's kind of what he worked up, is the 97,000 was for using a Generac. A Cummins is the $99,000, and then that, you would need a deposit for that. He did mention that this is for the cost for the next 30 days, and generators have been creeping up a little bit. So he was like, if this is gonna happen later on, like this would, you'd probably wanna put a few more $1,000s in there to kind of cover those extra
Well, we
costs.
would put contingency
Yeah.
and inflation on it.
Yeah.
They suggested we add 15% to any number.
Yeah, that's a good
So,
idea, yeah.
Um,
And,
Well,
yeah.
then covering everything that's excluded.
Yeah, all the exclusions, I would think you'd want to put another 30 to 50
Yeah.
on that, because the location that you've got in the back corner is some pretty mature landscaping back there, where the propane tank is pretty much where the generator would want to go. So you're probably going to have to excavate that whole area and get it down, grub it out, kind of pull all of that organic stuff out, and then build it back up. So there's quite a bit of work right there.
We also may consider, I just thought of this, but does it make sense to fence it in or something?
You could put an enclosure on it, yeah. I mean, the panels, they'll come and they'll be locking. It doesn't mean somebody couldn't, play with it or mess with it, but
Yeah.
they'd have to break it open.
There's panels on what?
The generator itself, the enclosure,
Oh, okay,
So-
so it's like a box.
Yep. yeah.
But I guess we'd have to consider actually putting even like a smaller fence or something.
You
I don't
could
know.
pop those open pretty easy.
Yeah, if you wanted to,
Or
yeah.
pry bars.
Yeah, but if you put an enclosure on it, they could do that unless you build a building. But again, if you want to get into a building, you can get into a building.
Keeps honest people on.
Yes, exactly. And the other good thing about it, which y'all,
Previous ones here is trying to break into a
Hey.
generator.
Worst case scenario.
the other thing is having the old police department there. So if you're going to have a sheriff there, the communications there, so you'll have the backup communications operational at that
Yeah.
point as well.
That's a good point.
That is a
So-
good point.
And a deterrent. was
Right.
Somebody breaking into
Yeah.
messing with the generator.
But the parking spot, that's where he parks, right in front of the generator.
Right by the
That is
generator.
pretty much right where you'd be. So, Kevin, could you take this and, work it up
Sure.
with some of those extras that
Yeah.
you think so it's all inclusive?
Yes,
Okay.
yep.
That'd be great. And then, Monica, does anyone have any questions for Kevin on that, on this generator?
Actually, this, and you might not be able to answer this, but I thought we had talked, we're allowed to propose multiple projects for the
Oh, yeah.
6 penny tax, right? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was
Um,
thinking this one plus the design, we're still well under $1 million.
Yeah, so Afton is putting forward $3.8 million.
Okay.
And just to clarify, because we thought there was going to be, if we said it was $20 million, that if we didn't hit it before, let's say 4 years,
Right.
then it would just stop and we'd be short. Well, that's not how it works according to what the conversation we had. That basically the tax will keep going
Until
until
the
you
project's
reach
fully funded.
until you reach $20 million. Now, they think that this will generate in the range of $25 million, but it could,
They're being very conservative.
let's just say if this was in a time where that new nuclear plant was going in really quickly, or we could pay off this tax in like a year with something like that. So it's something to keep in mind that, I don't want to break the bank, but I want to make sure that we're putting forward projects that definitely benefit the town. And also the this is another thing that came up. So I can't remember the exact numbers, but something like 56% of the county lives outside of incorporated boundaries, right? But a huge portion of the people that live outside, live in the county only, live in this part of the county. They live in lower valley.
Right.
So the county, if the municipalities decide, yes, we want to put forward projects, then it goes to the county and they say, okay, here's our projects that we want to add as well.
Right.
So it's this tough time right now that only Afton has really kind of put forward their numbers.
Okay.
And I think the rest of us need to start putting forward our numbers. But the conversations that we've had with all the municipalities have been like, well, some of the smaller communities have needs, of course,
Right.
but they don't want to put forward
Too big of a number.
too big of a number
Yeah.
and be like, well, Alpine only put $1 million and we're asking for 1.5. So we're in this kind of tough time
Yeah,
where, you know, Alpine being the fastest growing community, city, town in Wyoming, and are projected, you know, at the next census with annexations and everything, I mean, we could be a 2,000 person town then. And I think with, especially with the people that live in the county that are so close to the town of Alpine, that it more than justifies putting forward, you know, a number that's reasonable.
in which case we could potentially put all three forward.
I think we should absolutely put
I
all
think
three
you should.
forward and not just pick one of, or two of these. I think we should put three forward.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we'll see what numbers you come up with. and
Yeah.
See where
But
we're
I'm
at.
thinking when you add up these three projects, you're right around $1.5 million. So that's just a rough estimate. So we need to fine tune stuff, but in general, I think that's kind of what we're looking at.
Okay,
Does anyone have any problems with that, or think our number's too high, or we should aim higher? This is when I'd like to hear that.
So for me, these are all great projects. They're all, will be necessary for the future. As I said the last meeting, I hope I'm wrong, but I don't see this having a snowball's chance in hell of passing.
yeah.
So
I
I
think it's
think,
gonna be rough.
I think all the work we do is, I mean, this is work that we're gonna end up doing eventually, you know, because, again, they're great projects. I'm glad that we're doing them. But I personally wouldn't spend too much capital
Yeah,
on putting something together for a plan that, in my opinion, is just gonna fail. Lincoln County, in at least the 14 years that I've lived here, has never voted on a tax increase.
yeah,
Only the towns have, but as a countywide, never happened. There's so much of a backlash with the increase in property taxes right now. That's where I really don't think it has a
Yeah,
snowball's chance in
yeah.
hell. And I'm amazed that Violet and Brian put this out, because it's, good luck. I hope I'm wrong. I hope come back and say, told you so.
That's why.
Because this is a good, as taxes go, this is a good tax. It goes specifically to the projects that we want to do, and it cuts it off as
Right.
soon as that project is completed.
Yeah.
I campaigned for the last one in 2018. It passed in Alpine, but lost in the county. It is a good tax as taxes go, but I
no,
don't
and I think for me,
see
I
it
just
happening.
don't want us to not submit something.
Okay.
Right.
off
No,
campus.
No, that's why we have to.
But-
And even like Thane is, as a town council, I think they agree that it may not pass.
Yeah.
But it's incumbent upon them to put forward something.
Yeah.
In case it
Might
does.
as well, what's the worst that can happen?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's just, do we
It's
want to
watching
spend our
our-
money right now
Yes.
for a project that isn't going to happen? However, these projects, I think we're going to be spending money on regardless.
Whether they happen in
Whether
4
they happen
years
in 4 years or
15 years,
exactly.
whatever, yeah. One more thing that really hammers home the importance of the county, goes along exactly with what you just said. We have to educate the people in the county as to why this would benefit them. And we also have to educate the county commissioners when it does go to them, if and when it does go to them, that they have to bring forward projects that are viable. One of the major reasons why this failed at the last election
We didn't
on the
have county
ballot
support.
is because they put equipment, they didn't think, like, we're putting time and effort into coming up with good projects. They didn't do it 4 years ago, and they're not doing it now. So we have to encourage them to bring forward good projects. Because the last thing that I heard, if this is true, they wanted to use their money to pay for gravel.
At the same time, we, as a board, cannot campaign
No.
We cannot campaign, we can only
We
educate.
can only educate.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's all we're doing now, we're just telling people this is what we're doing, this is the, you know, the projects we're bringing forward. We're spending a little bit of town money to, make sure we've got good projects, because, again, we don't want to bring forward a project that the funding ends on it, and we're still holding, you know, the bill for the rest of it, so it's real important to.
That would be the downside to this tax is, say it does pass, and we start construction, and we go through another recession. So this tax is dependent upon sales tax. So it is dependent upon the national and the state and the local economy.
But again, the tax will not, if it passed and there was a recession, whether it took 4 years or 6 years or whatever, we will get that money. It's just the project cost might be more than that. And that's why you want to make sure you're covering, you know, the inflation part of it for sure. So, all right. Thank you for all your feedback. Yes, please. Could you turn on that mic? Thank you.
It's on. So I'm curious, I guess one approach is to you mentioned educating people. So, you know, when it hits people's pocketbooks, people pay attention. What would be the impact per household on the 1 penny tax? Has that number been put out?
Yeah.
It has?
So it is.
Is it $49 annually?
No. So if you take, let's just say it's 20 million. 20 million divided by, is there 21,000 people in the county right now?
Sounds about right.
I think there's 21,000. So that's just under $1,000 per person divided by 4. So it's around $240 per person per year in the county.
But that is,
That's not, yeah, but that's not
But-
how it's.
but that assumes that we're
That's
the
not
only
how
ones
it's
paying
calculated.
it.
So that, if you think about per person, so 74% of this tax comes from businesses. So in a lot of our businesses are funded by taxpayers, or excuse me, tourists. So people that are coming to town and spending all that money. That's why this is a good tax for us, because 74% of it is being paid by us partially, but a lot of it's being paid by tourists, especially in a town like Alpine that has all the businesses. For example, Star Valley Ranch, they don't have the commercial aspect, so they're footing the bill personally, or, you know, in their own, the residents are having to do that. So that's a great question. I don't, you know, 74% of the $240, let's just say, so it's $1,000 per person. $740 of that is being paid by, a little bit of it by you, but a lot of it by tourists.
Yeah, she sent us some minimal numbers, and it did come out to, it was very, very, very small per person, per family financial impact. But I think that's a really good question, and that's something that everyone is gonna ask us. So I'd like to go back to Violet
Yeah,
and get more hard.
And you also have to
Numbers.
realize that those of us who live in the valley often don't shop in the valley.
Right.
We shop elsewhere. So our taxes are paying for projects in Idaho. I mean, truly, what we're paying out of our pocket is benefiting their state, not our own. And so this tax does that to other people visiting our area. But yes, when I go to Brolam's, I mean, if there's something that's taxable, I'm gonna pay a penny more.
Yeah, essentially, 4 or 5 years
Yeah.
ago, the county did an assessment specifically of Star Valley, of what Star Valley loses to its own residents going to Idaho Falls,
It's
and it was around 1.5 million.
significant.
It's called leakage, and
Yeah.
they actually track it.
Costco,
Costco is like a majority of that. Right.
Costco, Sam's.
Okay, so let's go through, thank you for all your comments. Let's talk real quick about the proposed fee schedule. This is the same document that we received, right? There
Yes.
hasn't been no
No,
updates?
there's
Okay.
been no changes.
Okay, so, we've kind of come to the conclusion that we're not charging enough for our entire building and planning and zoning, building and fees in general. And, we don't need to make money on this stuff, but we just need to not have the current residents in the town of Alpine supplementing developers or just an individual homeowner that's building a house or doing an addition or whatever. So has everyone had a chance to look at these? Is there anything glaring that pops out that you kind of question?
Where are roofs, where are re-roofing permits included under?
Where are we?
Minor
It is minor?
construction.
Okay,
So, minor construction, where's that?
okay.
I think it's
It's 250 now, and it's proposed to be 750.
750,
Okay.
yeah.
That's a significant cost over.
That is.
Yeah.
Because I would say probably a lot of the ones that you get are remodels, they're decks, they're roofs. The only other one I saw that I know a lot of residents have taken advantage of is the temporary banners.
I'd assume the minor construction permit, does that include other things for people who don't know?
Yeah, because maybe if there's.
Well, because I know
maybe
we
could
put on our own
isolate.
roof at our own house, and it cost us about $3,000 in materials, a little more than that. So that would have added a significant cost to my re-roof.
Right.
Yeah, that one in particular seems like a lot.
That was many of discussions, yeah.
The issue really isn't.
Dan, do you mind coming up?
Yeah, could you
Thanks.
go?
Thank you. The real issue is in the inspection costs.
Okay.
That's where the revenue loss is coming. It's all the time and energy that it takes to go through, develop that project, and see it through fruition from the town side. And because there is such an imbalance from monies going in and
Right.
monies being spent by planning and zoning and building, that doesn't even get us there. That gets you close.
Okay.
But it's still, if you look at Du Bois, Lander, Pinedale, Afton, we are still, next to Du Bois, we would be the second least expensive place to build.
If we made these changes.
Even if you make these changes. If you make these changes, you're still second.
So that's kind of where I wonder, so Dan and Mo, to me, that doesn't help the bottom line. Like, if I'm comparing myself to other communities, those other communities, they have different expenses than we do. So what I kind of want to know is, what is going to cover our expenses? Is this still too low, or is this too high? If it's too low, then maybe we need to look at raising them. Otherwise, we're still in the same boat we are before.
I think
We're a little bit
I think
better.
the advantage for the town now is because we're trying to push for this annexation and getting the ordinance. The more property, the more area, the more building you're going to have, the more revenue is going to move through.
Right.
We're not looking to make money. You know, it's
No.
not like we're trying
No,
to
we're
keep
just
the
trying to
balance.
cover
We're trying to
costs.
keep that balance.
Right.
But as you go forward, as projects get bigger, it's going to cost more.
Yeah.
You know, like some of these bigger developments, even for the hotel, even for the sure stay,
Right.
those are going to take a lot of, it's going to take cost. So, you know,
It's
we're
land
looking,
reviews, things of that nature too, that don't necessarily, those are kind of covered in the initial fee.
they are some,
Yeah.
but you have reinspection fees, you know. As a general contractor, I've never had a reinspection. We don't play that, you know, you follow the rules, you go through it. There are a lot of, I don't want to use the bad term, but there's a lot of bad players. So they got to go back 7 or 8 times for that one thing.
Right.
I'm sorry, you're going to get penalized
Yes.
for that. But at $100, that's like, here, I'll give you the change out of my
Right.
pocket. It doesn't work because your balance then continues to get differentiated. So I'm not, you know, could they go higher? Yes, but we're trying to not involve ourselves with up north in Jackson and Teton County. We're just trying to keep it at a,
No, and I get that, but that's where, like I say, I mean, I understand we're second to the tier, and that's to kind of promote this, but on this end, I want to be able to make sure our costs are covered. You know, I'm not,
They won't.
you know, yeah, we're giving it away
know.
for $100, but are we giving it away for $750?
No, I think you're gonna balance that out with the time that it's gonna take to log all that work. I think you're gonna balance it on those ends. The places where I think that you might end up looking in the future are, when we go to rezone. How much time, like,
Right.
Oh,
like
yeah, that
Christ
was-
Project. I mean, you couldn't even
We
put a
lost-
value, you lost,
so much
that
money.
you
was
lost
so
tens
much
of
money.
thousands of dollars just in revenue there. So
Yes.
it's really basing, you know, how we are communicating. And because it's different now, because I get, as a builder being on planning and zoning, I see things differently. So I can help them, guide them through and say, you know, this is a place where we're getting taken to the cleaners. So it was, and Mo was really, you know, what about the little guy?
My biggest challenge was, like the reinspection, some contractors aren't as good as others as far as the reinspection. And what was happening is that, you know, our inspector would go out inspecting and go, oh, well, I'll have to come back and do this again. And there wasn't a charge for that, and there was no way to follow through
Right.
with making sure that that happened. And I think that's where a lot of our money had gotten lost. And I agree, there was a lot of back and forth and many a conversation, because I'll tell you what, $750 to put on a new roof for my house where I just had to fork out 20 grand for the materials? Are you kidding me? So these were very good conversations that we had at the P&Z, and I agree. He's absolutely correct. There's a lot of other permits that were a lot more. I agree with that too. And I mean, you and I, most of us know this here is that we've all been working stiffs here for years. And now all of a sudden, everything is starting to jack up, and we've been very fortunate to not have to deal with these types of shenanigans in the past. But unfortunately, for those around us who have taken advantage of the situation, has made it very difficult for the rest of us who have not.
Yeah.
And so it really bites.
Does anyone up here or anyone in the room have an idea of, wasn't there a reduction at some date?
Because of the recession.
Okay,
Yep.
so that was a question that I had. This might be getting us back to kind of level set that we had, say, 10 years ago or something, right? Dan, would you agree that the way this whole thing's set up right now, if we do go into another recession, like, we're not going to be able to cover our costs, so to speak, for planning and zoning. But if we have another boom, and let's just say things pick up again, then we might be able to get ahead. Like, these fees are not set up to really cover our costs if it slows down, right?
When I went through all of last year's data, I didn't have previous years, it
Right.
just has last year's data. And I took each one of those, let's say, each building permit, each inspection, and I kind of went through it and I said, if we take all of these line items and we increase these by certain percentages, there's more of this, we can increase here, we got close.
Right,
I think we were looking at a $30,000 disparity,
okay.
right? So you needed to create 30%. Unless you give away building here and you make the boom, that disparity will always be there unless you try to create, those fees have to generate. I can't, and I think that with the cost of land and what's happened up north and what's happening around you, it'll never go down.
Yeah,
This place is only gonna go this way.
for sure.
And if the town, which I think is a great idea, annexing and looking for the future, I think as you get bigger, that component gets a little harder, and you're gonna fight that ceiling, and those costs might have to come up again
right.
later. Because if you have, how many people in the town of Alpine, 1,200? And you wanna go to 2,000, so you wanna almost make it 100% increase, that's a lot.
That wouldn't all be from building.
No, but you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
as you move through. So I think that,
God
bless you, I think you're gonna get to a place where these costs will be bumped again.
Well, it
Maybe
has
not
to
in the near
start.
time, but I would say in 2 or 3 years, it would do really good for the board to actually look at that again.
Yeah,
I think
want
that
more
also
data
gives
by
us the
then.
time, exactly.
Yeah.
We'll
I
have the
also-
data and we'll know like this,
Correct.
we're getting a lot of
Correct.
pushback on this or something.
I
Go
did some
ahead.
research as well, and a lot of towns have done this in the past, and by God, I'm not telling y'all that I think we need to increase more money and ask for more money from everybody around us, but there was, some research I did about impact fees. And some of the impact fees were for commercial zone, commercial properties that were
Yes.
getting built and stuff. It's been brought to my attention, that's not something that the P and Z can offer, but I can give you all the information I've got that I did some research
We can
on, and you
recommend.
guys
I'd
can
love that.
and
We
just
can recommend.
figure that out. You know, if y'all don't have enough homework like the rest of us. But that was something that, after I swallowed these pills, for the rates increase, I was trying to figure out a better way to not impede the rest of us who work here and live here and are doing what we can to be here. Like I said, that $750 for a re-roof after that cost that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
I would also say that there's gonna be more commercial projects coming online. It's inevitable, right?
It is.
And so, and I don't know if we know that specifically. It would be interesting to track residential versus commercial in the future. My intuition says that we would get 75% of this revenue would come from commercial projects versus, and
But
that
then
may be
on-
the case right now, even putting in 1 or 2 hotels, over the last
Yeah.
couple of years.
Correct.
But then on the other hand, we don't want to discourage people coming in and building businesses so
I
that we
don't
No.
think we will.
It's
I
such
think
a-
that's-
They're the
It's
ones
such
with the
a-
money, though, is
Yeah,
my
they're-
opinion.
But are they though? Are they like people like you and I who want to start their own business and try to make a go at it and make it work? I mean, not everybody starts out with $250,000 in their pocket to start a business.
Well, right, but
Yeah, I think
the-
we'll be able to
Or 2.5, yeah.
yeah,
So Mo, is it just re-roofs in that minor construction?
So
Like there's
it,
multiple.
on the, page 37, there's a whole list of what each permit is going to be going for. The best person to talk to, Christine, can rattle that stuff off.
Because I know she's mentioned before, I believe, Mr. Mayor, I think she's talked to us about it, about the possibility of doing re-roofs as an affidavit.
I
Yes.
was just gonna ask
There
that
was a-
because I think we should do that.
The-
Do you guys agree?
There's a concern with that
Okay.
because we need to make sure some of these houses were built in the 50s and the 60s and
Oh,
they weren't the
yes.
load rated.
Right.
So if we do it differently as an affidavit, then that we need to make sure that we include engineered. Yeah.
Hardship.
I think that is the one thing that you could put it on an affidavit, but if they're changing the materials or
Right,
whatever,
right.
then it has to go
If they're
through.
And I
Going
think
from
that's one of
metal
the
to
reasons why she kept it the way that she
Yeah.
did. Christine would be the best person to talk
Yeah.
to about
Well, I'm
that.
thinking, we'll talk to her about it, but it may be the time to pull that out because that process
Yeah.
of doing an affidavit is less costly.
Yeah,
Yes.
and that could stay at 250 or something like
And,
that.
yeah, and it just, there was a whole lot, even with the folks that want to build a deck, like come in on a Friday and want to build a deck on the weekend.
Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff is
Right.
what you want to nip in the bud too.
And that's, yeah, I
That's
mean,
only
that went to
$100
300, but,
Yeah.
and to me, that's,
Yeah, I'm just going
No, no,
off
no, no.
memory.
for sure.
I mean, there's certain pieces with decks, if you're gonna pour concrete and you're gonna put a you gotta put a footer in the ground.
Right,
Somebody's gotta look at that.
yes, 100%.
You don't, it's not like Saccrete and go dig a hole and start putting it in there.
Right.
So where would you put, in that scenario, would that be a minor construction permit?
No, it has,
No.
we
Still
have our
Be
own
the
deck.
But it would just be a deck, but then somebody has to go over and,
But
Inspect it.
P and Z would have to inspect, we're gonna look at that and we're gonna say, then you
Okay.
need an inspection for this, this, and this.
so, do you want to break decks out? If you're doing a wood
Well,
deck?
I mean, we could break out a lot.
Yeah.
But we're trying not,
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
think you have to take each one
A little bit
individually.
at a time.
And you have to say, here's what we're gonna recommend you do.
Yeah.
And if you do this, this, and this, we're gonna give you the permit.
okay.
Great. I mean, we're not gonna tell people they can't. I think that there's enough in here that helps us guide us, but there are places in here we need to tighten up too, and that, some of the stuff that we brought to you,
Through your research, for both of you, do you have an idea of what is a fixed cost and what is a sunk, or a variable cost as you go through? I mean,
You're gonna have to talk to that guy.
so we at least cover our fixed costs and then know where to put our variable
Correct.
costs?
So, let's say, for planning and zoning and building,
Yeah.
okay? Yeah, there can be a fixed cost development, but there are some programs out there that we can actually utilize that aren't very expensive, but each inspector and the planning and zoning would have, we'd be able to watch, and we'd be able to see that. Right now, it's just tracking by, looking at time cards, and, I mean, it's kind of rudimentary.
Yeah.
If we could see it in real-time data.
Track it, yeah.
And track it. I mean, Christine showed us that the building permit, thing,
Yeah.
there was
I
24.
don't know what's changed for people to get a permit these days, but some of the folks that we've had permits come in, I was like, that was never allowed when I was doing my shop, when I was doing my fence, when I put in my greenhouse. Like, they drew something out on a cocktail mattress,
Yeah, and this
napkin
is-
on what they were
this
gonna
is-
do.
Some of this stuff is, there isn't anywhere in here that says they can't. They don't,
Yeah.
so we're trying
For
to.
their site plans and
We're
whatnot,
trying to
yeah.
define that site plan. We're
Right.
trying to define that setback place
Yeah,
and what can
something
happen in it.
changed at some
Those, yeah, something has kind of
Yeah.
moved into a lesser check off and, you can do whatever you want kind of plan.
Yeah.
This
Is half
is
the,
not the time for that.
Now we gotta
No, we
hone, now we're
can't.
trying to
No.
hone it in, so that's why the setback thing was important, the, having the engineered drawing, but everybody's gotta do that, so it's just a button. They just push it out on a piece of paper and they give it to us. There's,
and this is where we had that good, healthy discussion between the two of us.
Yeah.
It's just a button, but that is a $1,500 button. I don't know about y'all, but another $1,500 on
It definitely
top.
could be.
but we have to
Yeah.
do that anyway, because you have to have a certificate of placement, so the only way you can get that is by having an engineer set that all up for you.
Got it.
So, when you've done that certificate of placement, you've done all that work, you push the button, you plan out the plan, and here it is, planning and zoning, this is it. But there's nothing in there that tells them up front, this is what you gotta do. We need that. Everybody needs that.
Yeah.
There isn't a town yet that I've seen that you can get away with that, except here.
Yeah.
And it used to be, like I said, I don't know what changed, but even when I did my shop, I didn't have to have a certificate of placement. I had to make sure and stake out my shop and make sure my property markers were all knocked out where they were supposed to be. And then somebody from the town came by and took a look at it. I'm like, oh,
That's
yep,
what
you're
happened.
right on your specs.
Same with our shop.
They're changing it now to
I had
where
to give plans, though.
I gave them plans for my shop
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, yeah.
But that's also now what we're talking about with this new certificate of placement is that's an extra $1,500 to $2,000. And now you've got your engineered stamped concrete plans. Now you've got your stamped engineer building plans. And now it's just a little bit
But
more
see,
and more.
the
It
thing
adds
is, I
up.
think what Dan's saying is, we require a certificate of placement right now.
Correct.
So.
We did
the-
before too.
Yeah, so they're having to come out and do the work. But what Dan's saying is now they're doing that work and now they just need to give you a piece of paper that shows exactly what it is beforehand instead of bringing it to the planning and zoning later on.
On a napkin. You
Yeah.
don't want to see it on a
Right.
napkin.
So I think, I don't know if it's directly gonna be $1,500. I have
Oh,
no idea. It could be more.
please,
I have no idea.
This
Correct.
is not numbers for the
Like-
record. It was just general knowledge that I was coming up with. It wasn't anything set in stone.
When I built my house, it was $1,250.
Right.
Okay? And they just came out and they staked the corners, and then they actually come out, and after I poured my I dug the hole, we put the points in. So they came out 3 times.
Checked it, yeah.
Yeah, and they did it at my
And,
shop too.
and then they put it on the footer and said, you're good,
Right,
Yeah.
go away.
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's not like it's an expense. The problem that this town has had, more so than any other community, is we have a lot of houses that sit like that. Like over the setback and into somebody else's zone. I just found, there's a foundation that just got poured on somebody else's property just down the road. If we're gonna do this, we gotta get there and set the parameters so we don't look silly.
Yeah.
Well, and even that kind of stuff, I'm not for sure how that happens, because there's clear and legitimate rules on how it has to be, and I don't,
Yeah, it's tough.
so.
I look forward to them
Sorry.
coming in and asking for a variance on that one.
I'm
I
out.
mean, what are you gonna do? We do debate this stuff,
Yeah.
and it's a great team of people. It's fun, because this is where I live.
Almost like it's not fun for
I live
me.
in this book. The general
Right.
contractors and developers live
Yeah, you
here.
have
Yeah,
to, yeah.
yeah.
We have to. And so for me to read it, when I start reading it and go, well, it doesn't say that I don't have to do that. You know, when I read that and
Yeah.
I'm gonna put that baby right there.
That's why you're here, Dan, because we want you to tell us all.
Yes. All the
Let me ask you
loopholes.
real quick, the only other thing that's kind of real glaringly is the development fees where you have the variance. Those are so rare, I don't know.
But
The
when
zoning map amendment, and then the simple, minor, and major, all being the same price?
Yeah, that was something
Yeah.
that we have, that's been there for a while.
But Christine was saying that they lose their butts in the office.
Yeah.
On every one of those. They have, like, the Grice edition, how many times did they have to re-advertise?
Yes,
Send it out. This will help to cover that cost. And that was the only reason.
We are gonna change that, similar to what we're doing with the annexations, where we put the onus on the person that's
For
looking for that.
doing all their
Yeah,
advertising.
so
and-
we may look at those numbers and
Yeah.
dial them back a little bit, but.
I think
That
one of
totally
the,
makes sense. It
I
was just
think
something that
one of the
Christine-
things on your annexation piece, and you brought it up, so I wanna, I
Please.
wanna speak to it. One of the things that, after reading that document like 3 or 4 times, I think it would be healthy for any annexation that comes into this town is a subdivision. Even like the Dead Horse.
Oh, that's right.
Because it's 7 acres can actually turn into 28 pieces of property,
Oh, yeah. it's-
per your rules.
Right.
So if they come in as a subdivision and let us review all their CCNRs, so we can go through all the CCNRs and how it looks like this for the town of Alpine,
Yep.
we can then direct them and say, yeah, change this, change this, change this, and you're good to go.
Yep.
I
I
think there
appreciate you
was
bringing that up, just
one
real
that
quick.
did do
I
that.
wanted to say that, I spoke to Monica today, and we aren't going to do the third reading for the annexation in April, we're gonna push it back to May. So we have a chance to catch some of those things. So,
Thank you.
Okay,
go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, that's interesting that you brought that
Yeah.
up, because I think it was Laramie that reading through their annexation agreement, they directly had their ordinances reference subdivisions, and
Absolutely.
the next step for the annexation was a subdivision,
Correct.
application.
That was in our-
So I
Because
think-
the subdivisions could be stronger than
Right.
this,
Right,
and we could see to that.
right.
That's just, that was a, yeah, thanks for entertaining
Yeah,
us.
Well,
absolutely.
we'd love to.
You have any?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Monica,
So,
did you have-
yeah, one little thing. So on the reinspection, when I read this, it says fee per reinspection, and then it says 1 hour minimum. I'm confused. Is it per inspection or is it per hour?
So when you have your permit, when you already get your permit, you're allotted, let's say, 4 inspections, okay?
Okay.
And you don't pass your rebar inspection. We have to come back. Well,
Yeah.
there you go, hour minimum. You're gonna get billed an hour minimum because you didn't type.
But if it takes 2 hours, you're going to charge them $900?
Two hours.
Okay.
Okay,
I don't think that that's per hour. if
Okay.
I
No,
recall
it's
correctly.
not, it's per inspection.
okay, then you probably want to get rid of
But.
The hour.
But that's the way it was, that's
Yeah.
the way that sheet was.
the old one. Okay,
That's the old sheet.
gotcha.
But I think that if people see that you're gonna get fined for a reinspection.
Yes.
Right.
It creates a little oomph.
I better make
and
sure
go,
it's
"So
right.
I better get this right, or this is gonna cost me a lot.
Yeah.
Accountability.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So,
it's a deterrent,
thank you.
Yeah.
clearly.
Thanks for letting us speak.
No, thank
Sharon.
you.
Contractor just pay push those costs out of the homeowner?
It depends
They
on
do.
who got the
It depends
permit.
upon how your contract was set up.
Yep.
Right?
A
Now,
good
a smart
contractor
woman
would
like
do.
you would say, I'm gonna give you 1 inspection for your concrete, 1 for your framing, all the way through the line, and you can pay for all the extras.
Yep.
Maria's house is already built. She's already. Well, no, I really appreciate this because going through the budget, it's incredible how many sub-departments and departments that we have that are not paying their way.
Yeah.
And that's just something that
There's
we've
no
been able
reason
to
for
make
that.
up for, and we can't.
We
afford
can't
that
help you with all of
anymore.
those, we're just
Right.
gonna try to
You
help
tell
you
me
with
to
this
pick
one.
Yeah, and so I think though, at the end of this year, fiscal year, next fiscal year, we're gonna have really good data to really support the decisions that they're
Yes.
making. I can tell you that the decision they're making is incredibly necessary. Planning and zoning, again, it's something that I feel that the town needs to provide. It's a service, and it does not even have to pay for it 100%. That's, at the council's pleasure. you are providing a service to the people who live here, and to what level, but it's dramatic. It's a dramatic loss.
Yes.
So for the amount of money that's being spent, so I
You know,
think this will.
I might add, Monica, that it's not just for the people that are here, it's for the people who move here and are buying those houses.
Yes.
That were under our tutelage. And I don't even want to show you the stories I've gotten to see.
Yeah.
It's, that's why we're trying to do this.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Okay,
We really appreciate all the time and effort and discussions and
Yeah.
research that you guys did for this.
Yeah.
And don't forget to come to planning and zoning meetings. They're important if you
Yes.
want to know what's going on in your town.
We appreciate
If it
you coming
helps,
to
I
our-
watch from the comfort of my own home.
Yeah,
Yes.
I love to watch from home too, it's great. Next order of business here, we're gonna try to get through these last couple real quick.
yeah,
So, the F-350 general fund, request for, bids. This is.
Yeah, so
Or-
this is just a conversation for the budget. So, if you recall, we did budget last year $110,000 for a truck. We held off on that. However, we recognize there is a considerable surplus in the general fund because of not spending the amount of money that has been spent for snow removal. So Craig did do some checking. He is proposing buying a used vehicle for about $50-some thousand. So unless somebody has a objection to it, I think we should put it out for bid. But
And it'd be in this fiscal year.
it would be bought before the end of this fiscal year. It would not be in next budget. So it's half of what he wanted.
It's half
I mean,
of
half
what
of
we
what
budgeted for.
we budgeted for last year. So, and it would bring the vehicle, dramatically. I think it was a 2019 that he found, and he said, hey, that would work. So,
Yeah. It's 5 years old, but
Is it for emissions too? It's a 2019?
no way around that. Everything going forward, we're gonna be,
yeah.
have every newish vehicle we're gonna be. But, yeah, so we don't have to make a decision on that or whatever. Like, we could, at the next town council meeting, say, give him authorization to do that, or what do we need to do now? Just-
Nothing, you can't do anything
Yeah.
today. So, but I'll put it on your agenda then for the April 16th meeting,
Okay,
is what I'll do.
okay.
For that meeting, Monica,
Yes.
we have a list of current loans specific to streets and roads, so other vehicle loans that we have
So
outstanding.
have you opened up, I know you were sick, I shared with everybody the budget worksheet. There's multiple tabs. One of them's called debt service, and all the information's in there.
Okay.
Last payment that was made, current balance, all of that stuff. So that's why I shared that with you. There is information about capital projects, where we're at with grants. I'm still haven't collected all that.
Yeah.
When Christine's now, I've asked her for it. She started working on it. She's on vacation. We'll get back on it. But we're trying, so all the capital things people are asking me for, I've got multiple tabs. I have locked the front sheet because I don't want any of those 5 years worth of numbers to change or I'll cry. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But, so, yeah.
Maybe that's what I was trying to
go.
get at.
So, yeah, so
And
The
that
other ones, because I remember you sending that out and I couldn't get in, and I was like, oh, it must not be done.
It's in there.
Okay.
So, yeah, go check that. If you can't,
if you can't, yeah, let me know. I can
What
resend it.
date was that sent on, do you remember?
we went back, I think it was the 22nd March.
Yeah, it was after I worked the weekend.
Yeah, that was after that Sunday,
I got-
So it had to be like the 22nd.
yeah.
I don't have it.
Well, it was a weekend. You were supposed to go away because I was here
I've got
with your cooler.
an email from you on Thursday, the 21st, and then another one on you from Monday, the 25th.
It had to be Monday, the 25th.
Can you just resend it?
Oh, yep, here it is.
Yeah.
I got it.
What date is it?
Monday, the 25th.
Okay. So go and look at that email, and if you have questions.
If you have any problems getting in that, let me know. But the debt service is in there.
Yeah.
Um,
And I would say that department, just from what you and I have looked at, that is probably gonna take a lot of time as far as managing what needs to be sold, what Craig thinks he can sell it for, the support that we'll have to give him to do that, to offset the capital projects. So I
Yeah.
think that's probably gonna take a lot of our time.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree completely.
Yeah. Okay,
Next
okay.
item on here, Monica, is the maintenance orders
Okay.
proposal.
So with Cassell, in the utility management, there is a small piece of, utility work orders. So it's specific, though, to water and sewer.
Okay.
And it's tied to a specific property. So, you know, you can put that somebody thinks they have a leak or whatever, and then so if they call us, you do the work order, it goes to Craig assigns a guy to it, he goes out and does the work, he tracks what he does, and we have a database of work we do. We track nothing that we do,
Right now,
In the
currently we
field.
track 0.
okay?
Yeah.
0. So they do, when Melody was getting that set up, because we're like, yeah, we should be using this. And so they told her about the full work order system. So that utility one, again, is tied to like Monica's house, her address, that's it. The full work order system allows you to do any work throughout the town, whether or not there's a house nearby. So like if you were on a street with no houses, with no water and sewer taps, and you had a pothole, you'd really have a difficult
Right.
time in the current system to make that maneuver. With this system, it will completely do it. And then we'll, again, have records of, start collecting data and start collecting records of what's done. The setup fee and training costs are about $1,000, and it's $100 a month, $101 a month.
Do you think this would help? I'll give you a scenario. I know when we were talking about annexations and laying new asphalt after pipe work was done, do you think this would be something that would help us? Because we could say to the contractor, well, hold on a second, we just repaved that spot
Yes.
2 years ago, so it has a weakness, so we'd
Yeah.
like you to repave X amount.
And I don't know if it's a thing in Wyoming, if it's just laid back. I don't know, Kevin, maybe you can tell me. But where I come from in water and sewer, every water and sewer connection that's made to a property has what's called a tap card with a drawing and measured, so you know where the pipe is in the ground. Your mains are laid out.
And picture.
You know where it is.
We'll be able to,
I mean,
Who's
it's,
laughing back?
you know where your valves are. I
Right.
mean, now Craig's done a tremendous amount of work without any
Any of
sort
it
of
being-
collection
right,
system. I mean,
right.
he's figuring it out, he's learning it,
Yeah.
but there is no data.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
if it's not in his head, it's gone. You know, I mean, but, Craig's been here a while, but, you know, that's how it's been done. Nobody's kept record of anything that's been done. So I was kind of a little gobsmacked that they didn't do that, but I thought, okay, we're pretty laid back.
This is the main tool that the town of Alpine will use to ensure that what we have in the ground, we know the last time it was touched, it was dug up,
Yes.
it was anything. So this going forward from here.
Or that a pothole is fixed, or, anything.
Yeah, so this is the way it's set up right now is someone called and said, Emily called and said, we think we have a leak in our house. We do have the module through the water billing where we could make that note. This would take those
No.
plus,
Right.
you could call for that and it would go join up with this module. But then when you called and said, there's an enormous pothole that's blocked from my house. You call, she puts in the work order for that. Craig assigns it to someone. He goes out there with a tablet, whoever that is, goes out, looks at it, takes a picture of it, and then it comes back through the system like high priority. We need to fix that because 10 people have called and said we need to fix their car because the
Yeah.
alignment's off,
Right,
that
right.
sort of thing. And then it's tracked, and then when it gets fixed, it gets off that list. But there's on the backside, Craig will have, every day, he'll come in and be able to assign work orders to all of the guys.
That's huge.
And then we can track how much time it took to fix that stuff.
Right.
Because they can assign, we know on that day he did that, and it took 4 hours for all 5 guys to dig up that hole and fix that, or whatever. So it's very, very powerful.
And it'll be a huge budgeting tool in the future as well.
Yeah, for the upfront investment, if that's the total investment, then it's
Yeah.
$101 a month.
And as well, though, it's also good for communication. So if Mo calls and says, there's a pothole out here, and we fill out a little work order, and we send it, but we send it off, and they go and do it, or maybe they don't fix it. Not that they wouldn't not fix it, but to say they didn't fix it, and then she calls us back in a week and says, hey, Monica, what's going on with the pothole
Mo's
out
gonna
here?
call you back.
I can look and
Until Mo
say.
go get a hobby, we have things to pay attention to.
But I can say, oh, they come out and they put stuff in it. Oh, I don't know. I'll send them back out. Or, oh, maybe they missed it. Let me get a hold of them and let them know. It also becomes a greater communication
Yeah,
piece
it's
for
customer
us.
service piece for
Yeah.
sure.
What were you gonna say?
So, at the last meeting, and this was a really good conversation that Dan and I had again. One of the requirements that, we have put forth with P and Z with new construction homes is civil drawings. And with your civil drawings, they're gonna have where your sewer is, where your water
Yeah.
is, what that water line looks like, everything along those lines. So that will also help with some of this data that you guys are talking about. But that is something that we are,
Yes.
are making steps to add to the permit so we can, make things possible.
Eventually, we're gonna have our water and sewer system on GIS, so it's gonna be much more
Yeah.
accurate.
That's
and
huge.
So that's
Yeah.
gonna be great.
So just to let, I don't know if you guys had seen any of those notes or anything from the last P and Z, but yeah, that was another cost. That was a little bit of a challenge for me to swallow as well, so.
I think the challenge, though, is there's so much of Alpine that's old that nobody really knows.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's gonna take a long time
Thanks,
to
Mo.
make that data show up, but you gotta have a way to at least start tracking.
Yeah, everything going forward.
Yeah.
When someone's tapping in or whatever, there's gonna be all the documentation, there's gonna be, pictures. When the holes open up, you're gonna know exactly what's going on there. And then you can relate back to it. 10 years from now, when it needs to get dug up, you know what it looks like underneath the surface.
And I think in Mo's case, when she was talking about, we're really concerned about multifamily and commercial stuff. Who's gonna use that much more water?
Right.
And sewer dependency. Not, residence isn't such importance, but when we start getting into bigger unit developments, that's, as engineers could weigh in, it's almost imperative that they know where everything is.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Any homeowner's gonna wanna know anything of that. I guess I'm there, sorry.
Well, the town is gonna wanna know going forward, so.
So it's $1,050,
Yeah.
and then how much is it a month?
101.
101.
Oh, 101. Okay, sorry.
So the other additional cost, and Melody was working on that research. And again, this'll all, do you want us to do it in April or May?
I think
On the
the
agenda.
proposal in April.
Okay,
We might as well get.
so I'll have Melody put together, almost like a staff report, because there is some additional cost.
Is that for training or
And-
tablets?
And so tablets. And so she's been doing some research, her and Craig, on what's appropriate for that, because that means in order for the guys to actually track it, we're gonna have to give them the tools to do that.
It also becomes, they come in the morning, they pick up their tablet, they sign in, or they clock in.
They're gonna clock right
They
in
clock
on it
in,
as well.
they, this is their work session, their day is all right there. So that is something that's not captured here, but we're gonna hopefully come up with a proposal on what we need. That also goes hand in hand with what we're talking about using for planning and zoning. So where do we stand on, we don't have that module yet for planning and zoning, or do
So
we?
the module was approved by town council when
Right.
we approved all the accounting stuff. That was a piece that we also did. We haven't been charged for it because we haven't implemented
We
it.
haven't been using it yet.
Yeah, and so, and Dan and Mo, so the town council purchased a module, to do all the permitting and to track the inspecting for planning and zoning.
And it's our intention to start using it.
Yeah,
So basically, during your meetings, instead of just coming up with some spreadsheet and it shows like, oh, this is the latest notes on the side, you'll pull up this software and you'll be able to go through every permit that's outstanding, and you'll be able to see what status it's in, last thing that happened.
Pretty much what we've got now is just new and angle.
Yeah.
Instead of the Excel spreadsheet.
Now it's a yes.
Yeah, it's an absolute guess. And also, you will have pictures, you'll have all the inspections, you'll be able to see all that. So, again, another real powerful tool that will set us up.
and I know Christine's been struggling with just finding the time to be able to take that on. So I've asked Melody, she's a driving force, but trying to even getting accounting. I mean, she's really strong in the IT end of getting all the setup done with all this stuff. So I've asked Melody for her and Sarah to work together to try to get what they need for the setup and help Christine get that set up, and then we'll do the training.
Yeah, so we're hoping to get,
So.
a couple days where the trainers come and get everybody who's gonna utilize it, they get trained over a day or two, whatever.
Yeah.
And just knock it out.
Because we're gonna have the timekeeping module.
Yep.
If we do the work order module, and then the permitting and inspection module. Do you know what I mean? It's a lot, and so we wanna kind of create a way that can all be done at one time, that saves us doing it over multiple days, and also saves money.
Yeah.
We'll just have them come in. They waived all the training fees the last time they came in. We just paid for their hotel and their
really
travel,
nice.
so.
I
for
think all this stuff
accounting.
really sets us up for tracking and establishing our budgets in the future.
It's setting you up for success.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
It's just a lot of work.
I know.
It's a lot of work.
It's new.
Well,
And it's budgeting for all of these costs. But
Yeah.
there's areas that we can,
Well, it's safe,
Reevaluate.
but there is time saving that's come into that. I mean,
Yes, yeah.
honestly,
well,
I
this
get
whole
so much
accounting
more work
system
done.
has, been
I get so
such a
much more work done.
godsend for Monica.
yeah.
So,
Although getting up to speed has been a pain in the neck, but,
yeah.
everything we're doing now is setting us up for the future and helping us more accurately, set
Utilize our
budgets and,
time. Yeah, it's-
and do all that stuff. So I think it's all really, really good stuff. But, you didn't intend to talk about the budget.
Just that, did everybody get it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so just as an aside, so I have balanced all of the deposit accounts. They're all done. I was hoping to completely close out the month of March before the meeting tonight, but there was a couple code errors on that process that I need Matt to help me with in the morning. So I'll close out period 3, probably first thing tomorrow morning. And then I'm going to, before I leave on Thursday, I'm going to I'll have then the budget, the financial report up through the end of March. So I will then take all the numbers into that 2024 space year-to-date, and I'll get that updated. So you guys will see all that by Thursday at noon. It'll be in there, but that's what's going to go in the first draft of the ordinance. At this point, I don't even know how to predict. It's really early, especially without the WHAM
Booklet.
Yes,
workbook
yes.
for income.
Yeah.
It's really early to try to even guess what 2025 is going to be. So I think I'm just going to plug, I think 2025 amended, our new budget, and 2024 amended are going to be the same numbers for that first reading. And then once we get through that first reading, then that's when all the work happens.
When is our next budget meeting?
So we're having our next work session is going to be all budget.
So
Okay.
the May, whatever.
Yeah, and if we need,
Second?
if I need to do, we'll see where I'm at. We see what information I have when I get back. If we need to try to pull something together at the end of
Okay.
April, we can. So, yeah.
Well, with you and I have, just with the general fund, have started pulling areas we'd like the council to look at for improvement.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Renegotiation, so we can start there, but I think for me, just as one.
Yeah, everything,
person,
that
it's
whole,
gonna be finding money in places.
that whole thing opens up once you know the income,
Right.
because that really drives the
I
expenses.
will say, speaking of income, we may have a proposal at the next town council meeting from someone wanting to take over the clinic building.
Oh.
So a new provider, so, that, exactly, yeah. A couple people will take it over, so,
That'd be amazing.
we should have some, hopefully, fingers crossed that we get some good news and we get a proposal on that, so.
Nice.
Anyway, any other comments, questions?
You ready?
Mo's ready. We can leave at any time.
We're done.
All adjourned. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks for printing that.
Thanks, Dan.